And Judge, we just heard your commercial there from Governor Bryant, and you actually served as chief counsel to Governor Bryant. So what was that experience like?
I had not met Governor Bryant until my first day of work. I didn't work on his campaign. I didn't contribute
Really?
any money to him. In I guess December of 2011, somebody called me and wanted to know if I'd be interested in working for him as his legal counsel. And I kind of met some people that were involved in the Republican Party because I represented Governor Barber in the redistricting litigation
Oh, really?
in 2011.
Okay.
And so I was in private practice at the time, and I thought that would be something that would be interesting to do.
Mm-hmm.
You recognize going into a job like that you're not the one making decisions,
Mm-hmm.
but you hope you can provide some good advice and hopefully influence decisions in
Right.
a good way. And I worked for him for almost 3 years, about 2.5 years to 3 years as his counsel, and enjoyed working for him. Governor Bryant's not somebody who just wants to hear his own thoughts affirmed. He wants people to challenge him and to give
Right.
him their own opinions. And after enjoyed working for him for 2 years and 2.5 years or so, and got to the point where I knew I was going back to practicing law. I was not going to be a lobbyist or a government consultant. I was going back to practicing law, and I felt like I kind of needed to go ahead and go back and
Right.
do that before I forgot how to.
Right. Well, I know Governor Bryant, he's going to surround himself with brilliant. He's going to surround with smart people. Because that's what he's looking for, like you said, he's looking for those people to give him the honest advice and what it's like. I know when I was with the JAG Corps, we do a lot of stuff with generals, and you got to be on the spot. That general, certainly the governor's the same way. When they want a question, you have to know it. There is no, I got to wait. You have to know that answer. You have to be a very smart attorney to be able to figure that out and say, okay, this is what we got to do. I'm able to take charge with that. Now, speaking of Governor Bryant, he has endorsed you, right?
Right.
So I just want to share something what Governor Bryant said about why he appointed you to the corner, because he appointed you. I just want to share what he said. He said, quote, "To know that the very best of the best throughout history have been chosen, the wisest among men and women to be judges, is the reason upon which I selected Jack Wilson to be appointed to this court. I believe him to be among those great men with discernment, with a leadership opportunity, with a heart to be a great judge for our state and for our country." For the governor to say, put you in that high regard, really, that shows me, because I have a lot of respect for Governor Bryant. I know a lot of our listeners have a lot of respect for Governor Bryant. So to hear that and to say you must have done, like I said, a phenomenal job as his personal attorney to say that. Now, the governor has also spoken about your conservative beliefs. And we got a call yesterday they asked, what's the difference between a conservative judge and a liberal judge? And I said it all has to do with interpretation of the law. Now, what would you consider the difference between a liberal and conservative judge?
People use those labels in different ways. To me, a judge is conservative if he or she is willing to follow the law as it is written, whether that's the statutes that the legislature has passed or our Constitution, and is willing to follow the law as it's written, rather than trying to impose the judge's own views of sort of what is good or what the law should be. And I feel like you do that, and sometimes personally, when I feel like I've done my best work as a judge, sometimes there are cases in which I'm sort of personally uncomfortable with the outcome in that particular case.
Right.
But I know that I've followed the law as the legislature's written it, or as in our case, we have to follow Supreme Court precedents, and I feel like I've faithfully applied Mississippi Supreme Court precedents.
And I think we've had, especially we see that at least at the Supreme Court level, all these activist type judges these days, and they just seem to forget. And I mentioned Robert Bork, about this originalist type view of the Constitution, of even of our own laws. The Mississippi Constitution is okay, yeah, that's all nice, but what does the law say? And I think that's lost. I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah. It's I guess there's this idea of the living Constitution that should mean whatever we want it to today. But the Constitution is just it's the supreme sort of law of our land, but it's just another type of law. And no one would ever say today, well, yes, the legislature passed this statute 2 years ago, and that's what they meant then, but it's a living statute, and so we should interpret it differently.
Right.
And it's the same way with the Constitution. You apply it as it's written and as it was originally intended to.
Absolutely. And we're going to get in a little bit of some of the case you decided. We have a great case about your statutory interpretation, how you just said this is what the law is, and we're going to mention that a little bit later. Now, along those lines, I can tell a lot from a judge by finding out who their favorite Supreme Court justices are. I always say my top 3 justices of all time was Justice John Marshall, Justice Jackson, and Justice Scalia. So what are your 3 favorite judges that you, at least most influential judges to you throughout the years?
You know, Justice Scalia is one that I always found myself agreeing with more often than most, and his, particularly, unfortunately, it was his dissenting opinions that were often the best.
Absolutely, yeah.
It was unfortunate that he was dissenting in a lot of those cases, but definitely Justice Scalia. I admire Justice Thomas a lot too, and actually, Justice Thomas, when my twins were born, they were born early, and I was sort of scanning the internet to see whose birthday they were going to share, and it was Justice Thomas's.
Wow.
And so before their first birthday, I wrote him a letter, and I asked him would he send my twins birthday greetings on their first birthday.
Wow.
And I did it like 3 months in advance because I figure he's a busy
Right.
guy, and I don't know if he'll get to it. Within about 2 weeks, I had really nice letters back to both of them signed by Justice
Are you
Thomas.
serious?
So,
wow.
I kind of have a soft spot for him, I guess,
Right.
for that reason. Beyond those two, I'm not sure. Justice Marshall's a good one.
Just from those 2, like I said, the fact that you said that tells me a lot, about what you view and how you view the Constitution because of how those guys, they're both great, some of the best justices we've ever had. Now, along the lines of your conservatism, you've also served as president of the Mississippi Lawyers chapter of the Federalist Society. And can you kind of tell people what the Federalist Society does and what they're about?
The Federalist Society was sort of a group of lawyers, and it was formed back in the 1980s or late 70s, I guess. And they had a view that law schools across the country were becoming sort of bastions of liberalism.
Yeah.
They were controlled by liberal law faculties, which was absolutely true. And they thought that there needed to be a group that was a counterbalance to that. And so the Federalist Society, the kind of chapters all over the country, but we try to put on programs that talk about, what the proper role of a judge is, and again, that's to follow the law as it's written, not to try to make the law what it should be.
Right.
The judiciary is supposed to be the least dangerous branch of the 3, and it's because we're supposed to follow the law, and that's what the Federalist Society advocates.
Absolutely. Like I said, that once again, that shows what you believe in as a judge. I think it shows what you believe in, how you write your opinions. Now, I want to talk a little bit about your time on the bench. So, since July of last year, you have already participated in over 500 cases and have authored 78 published majority opinions for the court, which I believe is more than anybody else on the court, right?
It is, and that's I guess I point that out sometimes to people because on our court, not because we get in there and we try to write opinions as fast as we can, but because on our court, at least initially, we are assigned a roughly equal number of opinions to write. And so, judges on our court that end up writing more majority opinions than others, it's because where there's been a disagreement on our court, a difference of opinion, that judge has been able to persuade at least 5 of his or her colleagues that his or her view of the case is correct and should be the majority opinion. And so, in effect, some opinions move from one judge to the other in that way.
Well, and that's, to me, that just shows how much trust and confidence the other justices have in you, because you're right. You have to write an opinion. They say you have to go with it.
Yeah. One thing on that that's just kind of been interesting to me about serving on the court is that a lot of times you see a new legislator goes to the legislature, and that person doesn't. They get the committee assignments they don't want. Their bills die in committee because they don't have seniority.
Right.
On a court, every judge has an equal right to circulate opinions to the rest of the court, and if they're logical and if they're persuasive, they tend to carry the day, regardless of whether it's like me, you're one of the newer judges on the court, or whether you're one of the most senior. And it's a good group of judges to work with that I love working with.
Absolutely. And a lot of them have said a lot of good things about you just by talking with them. They have all had nothing but good things, most of them, to say about the ones I've talked to at least. So are you more of a judge that likes to decide things on the briefs, or are you kind of a judge that likes oral argument?
I like oral argument. We probably have oral argument in only 10 to 15% of our cases. In a lot of cases, it's not requested. In some cases, it's not necessary. But if parties request oral argument, I'm very much inclined to grant it because I feel like if they're willing, to come to Jackson and argue the case, that we should let them do that.
Yeah, they have a little bit more skin in the game. Does oral argument ever sway you? Because I know you got like Justice Thomas and Justice Scalia are completely opposite on those ends of the schedule. So does oral argument already sway you, or are you more like I've already decided based on the brief, you think?
I don't know that I've ever gone into an oral argument with a firm conviction that the case needed to be affirmed or reversed and been swayed the other way. I've gone into oral arguments, you know, in some cases with an open mind and wanting to hear more. And in those kind of cases, I think a good lawyer can make a difference.